There has to be a symbol. One of peace.
Sarabada. One for all.
What does it mean to be a symbol of peace? That's the question that All Might gave us the answer to time and time again, whether it be in his glory days, as a teacher with a fading quirk, or even when he was completely quirkless. You know, there's a lot of really inspiring characters in anime, but I still don't think that anyone truly stacks up to All Might's heroism. I'm not saying that All Might's the best jack of all trades or anything, but when it comes to his archetype, I would call him a perfect character. MHA gets a lot of hate, and honestly rightfully so in a lot of instances, but for the 6 or 7 years that I've been a part of this community, not once have I ever seen any of that hatred targeted towards All Might. It's pretty hard to have a character that transcends anime like All Might does, but what's even crazier is that All Might doesn't have the typical traits of what make for a great character. Most popular protagonists and often a lot of side characters start out pretty weak and then have to face challenges where they learn and grow, and through that growth that's how we actually feel connected to them. If I could just throw out some examples too, there's people like Asta, Tanjiro, Luffy, Naruto, Ichigo, Gon, Goku, Shinra, Ed, Rudo, Yuji, and also Moomin Rider, don't forget about the GOAT. But almost all of these guys are so loved because we see them grow throughout the series, and by increasing their power in those pivotal moments, that's what makes them so heroic and inspiring. Yet in My Hero Academia, All Might isn't that. He's the complete opposite because from episode 1 he only ever gets weaker. Like, character development is such an important factor for writing someone interesting. Like, look at Endeavor, Todoroki, Bakugo, or outside of shonen characters like Guts, Thorfinn, and Musashi. They all learn and grow constantly, and that's what makes them so interesting to watch. However, that's the complete opposite of All Might's stagnant nature. This only works because he already became the symbol of peace, a pillar of justice that molds the world around him. To have someone like All Might who doesn't really develop feel so impactful, the world building has to be done in a way to center someone like him at the root of so many different factors, which is honestly super well done in MHA. MHA is technically Deku's story, but it doesn't just feel like Deku is the only one who plays a big part in this world. The strongest archetype can be a really difficult thing to write because it's super easy to end up with one overpowered character in a world that doesn't really account for them. But in the world of MHA, the existence of All Might kind of does shape society. The main villains, pro-heroes, Class 1A, and even society as a whole is constantly shown to be affected by the presence of All Might. And this one's a bit controversial, but I'd even go as far as to say that All Might is a better representation of the strongest than even Gojo. Every curse user in JJK fears Gojo, and his presence shapes the actions of those with bad intent, but All Might is literally the foundation of hero society in MHA and the catalyst for so much of the story. MHA isn't the tale of Toshinori Yagi. It's one of the impact that All Might has had all across the globe. But yeah, since the story isn't really about All Might, for quite a while his strength and title as the greatest hero is kind of in name only. We don't actually see him consistently doing things that live up to the hype, at least not yet. While he's being glorified by everyone, us as the viewer know that his power is declining, which at first would make it seem like this is the story of a legend losing his touch, which is true to a degree, but it's a lot more than that too. It's pretty rare to see such a pivotal character on a downward spiral like All Might. Even characters like Gojo, Meruem, Saitama, Yoriichi, and other strongest archetypes all have moments where they're challenged, but usually they overcome it and maintain their strength. So as long as they're not clapped out of existence, they can usually continue to be a pillar through their actions. But since All Might is losing his powers, it's not really possible for him to stay as a symbol of peace through brute force alone. He still needs it in some instances for sure, like the Nomu Shigaraki fight and his face-off against All For One, but All Might's legacy is so much more than just physical. His power transcends just throwing punches and becomes more of an idea, to go beyond plus ultra. Even when faced with adversity that seems impossible to conquer, All Might manages to pull through time and time again. Even in this final season where he's fully quirkless, he still manages to put up a fight. And that message All Might carries in every scene doesn't just apply to himself, as a large portion of his character is him struggling to pass on the torch to the next generation. Throughout most of the series, his eyes are darkened to symbolize his guilt and shame of not being able to be a hero like he once was. But in his final fight with All For One, we see that light in his eyes come back. This isn't just some random stylistic choice, but actually a change to represent how his character is learning to grow, as this is him finally accepting that he can pass on the torch to the next generation. The strongest characters in a series usually stay alive throughout the duration or die in a pretty significant way, but All Might's decline in strength and his struggle to come to terms with that and still managing to be a symbol of peace is what makes him such a perfect character. Also, while it's All Might's writing that makes him so fleshed out, I'd be an idiot for not mentioning his appearance. We're told that All Might is the #1 hero, and with a singular glance, I think that all of us can agree that he looks like the #1 hero. He's an absolute unit standing at over 7'2" and 500 pounds of pure muscle, and you can't forget that smile. Someone of his stature could easily come off as intimidating, but that smile that he sports in every fight shows that he's really a good guy. Every time that All Might arrives at a scene, he announces that I am here, literally being his own hype man in every fight and putting civilians at ease. His outfit is also a major part of his appearance and actually shares a lot of similarities with Superman. Apparently Horikoshi took more inspiration from Goku than Superman while crafting All Might, but this guy is pretty much just anime Superman at this point. All Might could easily wear more intimidating colors, but by choosing a brighter color palette in combination with all of his other traits, it only strikes fear into the hearts of villains. That way he can be a shining beacon of hope from a physical standpoint to everyone else, and Superman is actually done in a very similar way. way. Listen, I'm not a big DC head, but I recently watched James Gunn's Superman, and I think that the way that he did the outfit really sold the character for me. Compared to Snyder's Superman, which is really dark and intimidating, Gunn's was full of bright colors that really made Superman feel a little bit silly. And that's the point. Superman doesn't want to feel like an imposing figure. He doesn't want people to be afraid of him, and that's why his costume looks the way that it does. David Cornsweet, the man who played Superman, even vouched for the red trunks when Gunn wanted to remove them, as he said that having them made the character a little more silly and more approachable. It's the same thing with All Might. He's always worn these bright and flashy colors to make everyone know that he's approachable, kind, and not a threat. All Might's power can easily become a horrific tool, so All Might has to take every precaution to make sure that his power is only ever used for good, which is heavily contrasted by someone like Endeavor. Honestly, Endeavor deserves his entire own video because while he might be the second strongest compared to All Might, he's almost the exact opposite character-wise. Endeavor didn't want to be the symbol of peace, he just wanted to be the #1 hero, and while he was smaller than All Might, he was far more imposing and threatening. Endeavor saved countless civilians and defeated numerous villains, but he's never had the spirit that All Might did. Later on, when he learned that being the #1 hero took more than just strength, is when he finally began to understand that he was missing that spirit. But like I mentioned, that's a story for another day. This channel has taken a bit of a different direction since I started, but if you've been around for a while, you also know that I'm a big fan of power systems. And while overall quirks are pretty basic, the details of One For All make All Might's character even more tied into the world than just through his actions. One For All is a lineage-based quirk that is compounded into All Might's insane power, but the strength he possessed is only a result of the heroic actions before him. For someone whose goal is to become the pinnacle of heroism, it only makes sense for his power to be tied into that message too. It also once again makes the world feel more lived in, as All Might's past actions during Deku's story make the world feel so much alive. But there's also all the previous users of One For All that gave the world of MHA a rich history. All Might was only able to become the symbol of peace due to his predecessors, and that's why him passing on the torch to Deku is so fitting for his character even if it conflicts with his morals. He knows that All For One was made for Deku, but having to leave it up to the next generation when everything was always riding on him during his career took a significant toll on him, and that's why his final fight is so important. During his last fight, he had no quirk, so he couldn't just rely on himself. Instead, he had to rely on his students. His mech suit used the power of every quirk in Class 1A, and although it looked a little goofy at times, it showed us that All Might was finally ready to let go and leave it up to the next generation. Even in his acceptance of the new era, he still chose to fight until the very end, because One For All was really only half of his strength. It's his spirit that really defined All Might. Toshinori Yagi will always be a hero, quirkless or not. Speaking of how power can shape a character, I also wanted to mention something about seinen characters in relation to All Might. Vinland Saga especially is one that I think makes for a really good comparison due to its more realistic setting. Plus it's one of the only seinens that I've actually seen a lot of. Vinland is a very character-driven story that focuses on the internal struggles and conflicts of its characters, which is best seen through the main character Thorfinn. MHA on the other hand is far more plot-driven, even though it does have interesting characters too. Not that either one of these is better than the other, but each of these stories have their own strengths and weaknesses. Building a character that must face internal challenges and growth throughout the series is something that makes seinen so good, especially Vinland Saga, and creating a character like that is often seen as very challenging to do, but I think that also goes to show just how underappreciated All Might is written in a mirror context. All Might doesn't grow. He's a stagnant character from the very start, which may seem easier to write, but I'd like to disagree. To actually have All Might feel like such a large figure as he does, everything, and I mean everything, has to revolve around him, and it does. Stagnant characters can often end up feeling flat, where their impact on the story is low, and since they don't really change, they can be easily forgotten about. But that's not what All Might is at all. He doesn't really change, and yet his impact is seen in every part of MHA. He doesn't have some level up or redemption arc that makes him so loved. He simply only uses the power that he already had to inspire the next generation of heroes. All Might always wanted to be a pillar in the symbolic sense, but he literally is one too. The passion that All Might holds for heroism shines through in every single scene that he's in, and we can see his spirit living on inside the students of Class 1A. Even someone like Deku, who has grown into an absolutely insane hero, will just never stack up to All Might in my book. All Might is just that guy. He's the textbook definition of a true hero. Anyways, I hope you liked the vid, and if you did, I've got another one on screen about how Gabby is the most misunderstood character in AOT. So if you want to see more stuff like this, then go on over and check that one out too. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future uploads, and hit that like button if you liked it. Alright, that's enough yapping from me though, so I hope y'all have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace!